What are the top 10 dangerous foods you should never eat? Hi, I'm Dr. Eric Westman, and welcome to my channel where I review and debunk nutritional misinformation online. In this video, by an influencer in the keto low-carb community, Dr. Sten Ekberg, who actually has great videos, I have to say, and has helped a lot of people learn about healthy living. But in this video, he's talking about dangerous foods. And really, are they dangerous? Be sure to listen to the end when you get my final thoughts. Before we dive into today's video, I want to invite you to take keto nutritionist Amy Berger's free masterclass, The Secrets to Breaking Keto Fat Loss Stalls. If you're doing all the right things, but stubborn weight still won't budge, then Amy's masterclass is for you. See the link in the description to sign up.
Hello, health champions. Today we're going to talk about the top 10 most dangerous foods that you never want to eat. And we're going to do this in reverse order from least bad to most bad. And number 10 is refined grains.
Now, dangerous? Really? I'm careful with my language. I wish everyone was, and the internet certainly does not make itself, acceptable or highly visible if you don't use colorful, extreme language. So danger to me means you're on the edge of a cliff, or you're looking down the barrel of a loaded gun. I think it's a little, extreme to call refined grains, or any of these foods for that matter, dangerous. Now, are they unhealthy? Should you avoid them because they give you health problems? Certainly. But it's only some people, I think, who really need to avoid them to the extreme. But everyone who's on the edge of a cliff has danger. So actually some people can have refined grains, even in bread, pasta, rice, all the things I tell you not to eat if you're doing a low-carb diet, but they can metabolize it and they don't have health problems from eating that. So anyway, that's my first editorialization, is I wish the term dangerous wasn't used, but I know that's going to get you to watch the video, and that's the name of the game for getting video viewership and more watches and more views and more money.
And here we have things like white bread, white flour, white rice, etc. We also have pasta, which some people think of as more healthy, and you could argue it's slightly more healthy, but we're going to talk about where it really fits. But we have to understand how everything compares. What is it in relationship to? So when we look at the standard scale of low, medium, and high glycemic index, traditionally, everything under 55 is considered low glycemic index. And everything between 55 and 70 is considered medium, and everything above 70 is considered high glycemic index. But here's the thing, there are only carbohydrate foods on that standard glycemic index scale. So when you look up a list of glycemic index foods, they only pretty much have carbohydrate and starchy foods on there.
Yeah, so the glycemic index refers to foods that are carbohydrate. The glycemic index of butter is 0, but it doesn't show up on the glycemic index because it's categorizing carbohydrates. Now, I totally agree that these are the foods that raise the blood glucose and raise the insulin level in response to the glucose. These are the major contributors to insulin resistance, pre-diabetes and diabetes. So if you're trying to do a keto diet, you would avoid these foods entirely, even if they are very low on the glycemic index scale. So I agree that these are foods that need to be strictly limited or forbidden. And even I suspect there's a lot of undiagnosed, unrecognized gluten enteropathy or celiac disease or trouble from wheat because people just don't know that's the cause, and then doctors don't know how to look for gluten enteropathy or celiac disease. So really there's not much benefit to having the grains because of the elevated blood glucose and the possibility of having these other responses. Let me know if you've had any undiagnosed problems that actually went away when you stopped eating these foods, the bread, pasta, rice, the refined grains.
Number 9 is fruit juices. So let's talk about a few different things. That there is fresh fruit, which I think that you could have in moderation and seasonally.
Again, remember what you're trying to accomplish. If you're doing strict keto, you're one of my patients, you're in the weight loss phase of your journey, or even if you're at the weight maintenance phase, you're not going to want to have fruit, even in moderation. So Dr. Ekberg is speaking to someone who's at their maintenance level or not trying to be maximal fat burning individual. And I wish there was that nuance, but remember, you always want to consider, is the information you're getting relevant to your situation? There are a lot of people who push having butter every day, butter on your steak. I don't recommend that if you're trying to lose the butter off your belly, which is your belly fat. So if you're reversing diabetes, you're doing strict keto, you don't want to have fruit, even occasionally.
So why am I calling these foods dangerous? Some people who clicked on this video might think that they would see some gory stuff, of you take a bite of this mushroom and you die or something like that. But I want to talk about the things that actually kill people on planet Earth today, the top killer diseases, which is heart disease, COVID-19 in 2021. It is no longer one of the greatest killers, but I put that here for a reason. We're going to put that into context. Then we have cancer, we have stroke, we have COPD or chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, we have respiratory infections, dementia, we have type 2 diabetes, and then kidney disease and liver disease. These are the diseases that kill more people than anything else on planet Earth. So when I talk about the most dangerous foods, I'm talking about the types of food and the types of lifestyle that predispose you to these diseases, where there is a causal connection between what you eat and these diseases.
Yeah, okay, so there's the explanation of why you use the term dangerous, but still it's as if you're a little bit away from the edge of the cliff. It's going to take years for what you eat to develop these problems. And that, I think, is one of the issues. High blood pressure was called the silent killer to give people the wake-up call that it causes no symptoms, but it's going to kill you eventually, maybe, put you at risk for stroke and heart disease. So these are problems that occur years after years of eating these things. I have people coming to my office who, have spent a life eating a certain way and come in thinking that there's going to be a lot of damage from what they've done. There's going to be blockages of arteries and cancer or other problems, kidney disease. And yet when we screen for these things, it isn't there. So don't assume that the carbs that you've eaten or your prior lifestyle, whatever it is, or whatever it has been, has made residual damage. There are ways to assess for that now. But now I see why he used the term dangerous, but still the food isn't dangerous like you're on the edge of a cliff. In fact, by using that language, you're kind of getting into what the other people do, which is they say keto is dangerous or low carb is dangerous, and I don't like that language still.
Number 8 is fried food, and here we have things like French fries and potato chips, but even other things that we fry like shrimp or chicken or just about anything else is going to be high starch. If we're going to use potato flour or white flour or some kind of starch to soak up all that oil that we're frying it with. And the oils we use for frying, for the most part, are not going to be the healthy oils. They're going to be really bad and unhealthy, such as seed oils and soybean oil and sometimes corn oil. And here we start off with an excess of omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acids. So we're going to shift our inflammatory responses in the body toward pro-inflammatory. But in addition to that, these oils are extremely harshly processed We make them with high heat and high pressure and lots of chemicals. So even if some of these seeds were okay as a food to start with, by the time we make oil from it, we have changed the product so much it is not healthy anymore. And then, of course, to add insult to injury, not only do we have bad oils to start with, but when we're frying things, we're going to be reusing the oil over and over and over. And every time that we reheat it or we keep it heated and put more food in, we're going to turn that oil more and more toxic.
Well, so this one I think should be a little more nuanced. The fried foods, depends what you fry, of course, and how you fry it and what you batter it with. So you can actually have fried chicken if there's no coating on it, or if you use pork rinds as the coating of it, you're not using the carbs as the coating. So when you think of a fried hush puppy, which is fried cornbread, well, of course, that fried food doesn't count and you shouldn't have it. But so when people come to me in the office and say, I shouldn't have fried food, what they're thinking about is the fats, not the carbs. And so I like to just mix it up and say, well, actually you can have fried foods. And I'm not all that worried about frying in oils the way everyone else is worried about seed oils and all that. I think it's a negligible, very low or negligible contribution to the whole issue we're talking about. So you can have fried chicken, you just fry it without the batter or with the pork rind coating. You can send away for pork rinds now crushed up all for you, so you don't have to crush them in the bag. And you can even find that in some stores now. So I think fried foods is not just they're not all completely out. And especially if you fry the food yourself, you're not going to be having the stereotypical reuse of the oils that he's talking about. So I think that's kind of a nuanced one. Don't totally go along with that one.
Number 7 is low-fat foods. And here, of course, I'm not talking about leafy greens and non-starchy vegetables. I'm not talking about foods that are normally low in fat and it's a whole food. I'm talking about foods that should have some fat in nature, but we remove it.
Well, so the low-fat foods, I totally agree. Can't comment on that one.
Number 6 is breakfast cereals. So now we're working our way toward the worst foods. And very often with cereals, they start off with a processed grain. Sometimes it could be wheat, or very often a lot of cereals are based on corn. And now, unless they're organic, it's going to be GMO corn. But then, of course, with cereals, they always add varying degrees of sugar, anywhere from just a tiny little bit to where 50% of the cereal is pure sugar. And then, of course, there are artificial colors and artificial flavors. But then, in order to make it look healthy, they also sprinkle some synthetic vitamins on it so that you can have your GMO corn and your white flour and your sugar with a sprinkle of vitamins so that the list says that it has so many % of your recommended vitamins, etc.
So, of course, the chillax he's talking about would be for when you're at your maintenance level, not during the fat loss phase, maximal fat loss phase for my patients who are watching. If you're new to this, what we're learning is foods that raise the blood glucose and insulin, these are not healthy for us. And Dr. Ekberg is going through the top ones, and I think he's spot on. When the cereal manufacturers kind of got hold of the marketing and started pushing the idea that breakfast is the most important meal of the day, everyone started thinking you needed to have breakfast even. Think about it, break, fast. If fasting is fat burning and you're wanting to be a fat burner, you don't want to break the fast. So in fact, not having breakfast is fine with me if you're not hungry. It doesn't matter to me how often people eat during the day. I just want to make sure the food is nutritious, has enough protein, has enough other nutrition in it to be healthy. So, and then when he talks about the vitamins being sprayed on the product, that's what fortified means. That means that the food itself is so devoid of nutrition that they fortify it or spray the vitamins and minerals on top of the cereal. This is just, something that should be strictly limited, looked at from a health standpoint for sure.
So now we're on the home stretch, and here we find the really dangerous foods. So candy and snack bars is number 5. They are based on sugar typically, and then they want some flavor and some texture, so they add some fats, but it's not going to be your butter and your extra virgin olive oil. It's going to be these processed seed oils, the soybean oil, etc. And then we have a couple of things that most people consider very healthy, such as granola bars and trail mix. And they say, well, I don't eat candy, I just have granola bars. Well, sometimes they can be okay. It depends on how many ingredients, and if the first ingredient in there is something synthetic and some white flour, or if it's more of a nut or a seed in a whole food form.
Yeah, so sugar is, of course, what we're trying to avoid. If it's in a candy, hard candy, that's going to be the worst, or maybe not as bad as in a liquid form, like sweet tea. I mean, tea in the South, you can assume it's sweet tea unless otherwise specified. They call it tea and unsweet tea where I live. So no sugar in the drinks, please. But I wish that you mentioned that you could temporarily at least use sugar-free things to get people off sugar. I will allow people to use sugar-free things in a transition period at a minimum. If you have very little over the long haul, as a lifetime maintenance, I don't see the harm in an occasional sugar-free sweet or an occasional bar like this, but please have your nutrition come from real food, not fake food. What's amazing is we're still learning about nutrition and vitamins and minerals, and we can't put everything we don't know about into a bar. So hedge the bet that we don't know everything about nutrition and eat real food as much as possible. But I pretty much agree with this one.
Number 4 on the list is ice cream. And just like the name says, it's supposed to have cream in it, and which is a high-fat product that could be, if it's raw cream, it wouldn't be a terrible thing. However, now we add a pile of sugar with this, and now we make it very, very addictive. So cream by itself and fat in itself is usually very satiating, that it almost limits itself. You can only eat so much butter, you can only have so much cream by itself. But then 50% of it almost would be sugar, and now that sugar has that drug-like effect, and the combination is extremely addictive, and the sugar overrides that satiating effect.
Right, so ice cream, the Achilles heel or the kryptonite for many people, as it's said around here, it's really not low in carbs, even if it says keto ice cream. I'm afraid there's really no product out there that is super low, but you can have ice cream, you just have to limit the amount. So in the program I teach very strongly and over that we use total carbs, not net carbs. So you never just look at the front of the ice cream and say, oh, it says 0 net carbs, must be great. You always look at the nutrition facts and look at the number of carbs and the serving size. And if you can stay to a quarter cup, which is, a quarter of a fist, the volume there, you probably can have it, much like you could have a square or 2 of chocolate, if you can only have that much, if you can moderate it. What Dr. Ekberg is talking about is a trigger food. A trigger food is one that you can't stop eating, or the container becomes the serving size. So if you can't stop eating at that quarter cup, then no, you're not ready to have that. Even things that have products like keto this, keto that, look at the total grams of carbs, not net, to properly evaluate how they affect your blood sugar and how they turn off the fat burning in your body.
Number 3 is baked goods. So here we have things like cookies and pastries, which contain sugar and white flour and bad fat. So it's like we're getting the worst from each of the previous categories, but then we add something else as well. And one form of a baked good, of course, is cakes. So now you get all of these bad things, and then we add shortening, which is hydrogenated fat. So we start with the worst of the worst, which is these harshly processed vegetable oils, but then we make them hard. We harden them with hydrogenation, and now we create trans fats, and we change these molecules even more into something that doesn't happen in nature. And then on this list, of course, is donuts as well. So we're getting all of the previous dangerous things, but now we add the frying on top of that. So we add one more step of something that makes it even more harmful.
Yeah, so baked goods, I like this approach. He's talking about, first pass through high level view. You don't want to have these things. And then he's interspersing the language there, harmful, not just dangerous. Harmful, I think, would be a better term. Doesn't get as much views, I'm afraid. Now, some people might need to be told that they're dangerous so that they'll stay away from them. At first, some people view carbs like poison, avoiding them like the plague, just so that they stay away from them. And while that can be a useful psychological tool to think, well, it's dangerous, it's really not true. And so over time, you're going to say, well, gee, it's not poison, it's not dangerous. What I've been, fooling myself. You want to just not have much of them. And the baked goods, of course, you can replicate or try to replicate with keto-friendly products, the baked goods that you used to have. And I've tasted really good imitation pies and cookies and cakes and things that people make on their own. So if you want to go explore the substitutions for these things, there's a lot of information on the internet for that.
Number 2 is sugary drinks. And the reason I rank this as worse than anything previously on the list is that these are so easy to come by. It's so easy not to think about it. They're everywhere, and they're so much a part of our lives. So we have the soft drinks, there's vending machines, there's soda machines everywhere. Even things like lemonade. That sounds more natural. Give the kids some lemonade, but the sugar content is the same.
So I'm not so sure about that. I would love to see a study where you randomize people on a low-carb diet, preferably, to either having the artificial sweeteners in the drinks or not. Why not have a group that is eating sugar and have them have sugary drinks, have real soda? Or why not just in general public eating carbs, randomize people to sugary drinks, the soda versus diet soda, and then no soda at all. No one really has done these prospective clinical trials to look at the effect of the individual type of drinks. What we have are the correlation studies where those who eat more sugary substances and sugary drinks have a more likely outcome of having diabetes or other health issues. But we haven't really turned it around into the prospective clinical research that I think is so highly valued. And my hunch, based on thousands of people that I've treated, is that the diet sodas, these other sweeteners, are not as harmful as people say. And you can argue back and forth, until we have clinical studies going forward. No one knows the population effect. Of course, if a non-sugar sweetener affects you in a bad way, it gives you a headache, gives you some, sensitivity, then of course don't have it. I don't know of any health benefit from having a non-sugar sweetener, but it's better than having the sugar itself. So that's where I kind of differ with the pure, perfect keto teaching online. In my practice, most people have to have some sort of sugar-free alternative to get them off sugar, at least at first.
And the number one absolute most dangerous food or drink is alcoholic drinks. And here we have to look at two things. We have to look at the type of alcoholic beverage and how many of those drinks do you have in a week.
Yeah, so alcohol is a problem for a lot of people, and I would never say it's okay for someone with alcoholism to have alcohol. Maybe one day there'll be the social taboo that you wouldn't give someone sugar if you knew they were a sugaraholic or carbaholic, but we're not to that point yet. The nuance about the alcohol, I just look at the grams of carbohydrates and also calories, because even though vodka and other spirits have no carbs, they do have calories. So you do want to limit the alcohol that you drink, but it's not forbidden. And then the idea that fructose and alcohol affect the liver, well, if you're not having the fructose, like if you are doing a low-carb diet, you're not insulting the liver like you were when you were having the fructose before. So maybe it's a little less bad when you drink alcohol and you're not drinking all those other things. But then this may be just the rationalization of someone who drinks alcohol to try to say that it's okay. So if you have medical issues and alcohol could be a contributor for those medical issues, and for heaven's sake, don't have it. The idea that you have to have it is not really correct, even though it's habitual for a lot of people, and it's not forbidden on a program that limits carbs and allows you to reverse type 2 diabetes, like the one I teach. Well, I think this is another great video by Dr. Ekberg. He does a lot of great teaching, maybe a little too in the weeds for me from time to time, but it could be that our audiences are different. Most of the people who come to me in the clinic want something very concrete and simple to follow. If you're teaching online, you're watching this, it might even become part of your habit to watch videos instead of TV, then this is a great video. But please realize that there is nuance. These are harmful or maybe, not good for you. They're not dangerous, like on the edge of the cliff. If you like, please like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. Look for new content twice a week now. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. And check out adaptyourlifeacademy.com.